Okay, here we go. Five, four, three, two, one, and we're live. What's going on, everybody? This is Zach from Work. I got sitting with me, wonderful. I'm a huge fan of your music. First time I heard your music was through CT Versus. They posted
Oh,
story, and then I heard it, and then I listened to all of it. I always do that when they do that because I like to know what's coming out of here. But then I heard you, and I was like, wait a minute, this is different from everything else. This is like that raw, like almost grungy, but also like really heartfelt music that I love. So, before we get anything crazy going, I'll just have you like introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, that kind of thing.
hmm well, thank you. Um, I'm Beau Dega. I'm from Norwalk, Connecticut. I do currently live in Brooklyn. I have for 2 years now. But um, I've been making music for I've been making music for 15 years. Is that right? Jesus Christ. Uh, I'm not as young as I appear. And yeah, all my music, it's all me. I play everything. I do all the mixing. My joke is that I'm the only one who cares about. I'm the only one who works on my music, and I'm the only one who cares. But that's slowly becoming less true uh, as I've been doing it for longer.
So, what's your earliest music memory, and then how did you get into making music?
I come from a very musical family, um, in the way that my my parents were hippies, which is funny because the name of the podcast. Um, my parents were hippies, more or less. They kind of sold out, but it is what it is. I come from a working class family. And so my dad would like follow the Grateful Dead and stuff like that, which is music that I don't really listen to because that's kind of the rebellion part in me where I'm like, I went the other way and listened to like punk and hip hop was huge and stuff like that. My earliest music memories are probably just like being uh, a child on just at my parents' house where they have a big my dad has a big stereo and just playing music throughout the house almost all the time. We didn't really watch that much TV or anything like that. It was always like music playing. My mom plays guitar and she used to she still sings, but she sang on my album on one of the songs, but only on the Bandcamp release because I couldn't get the rights for the cover. But yeah, that's probably my earliest memory is just music just being played in the house. And my brother, I have a brother who's 4 years older, and he is a voice teacher, and he's a great singer and director and stuff like that. And he's been a huge influence and role model in my life to kind of, he was the astronaut. He got to do everything first. So then I got to say, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's okay. It's safe. I could do that. And then take things in my own direction because we have very different careers.
So, as somebody who does everything yourself, I can kind of relate to that too. Because when I first started making, probably about I think 8 years ago, I didn't have anybody who like wanted to come and help me make music. I didn't have anybody that could do any of that. And I didn't know how to play any instruments at all. So I kind of just took all the instruments that I had around the house. So I had a guitar, I had a keyboard, I had a little bit, very slowly my way to instruments. What was the first instrument that you picked up?
Um, I wanted to play the drums, but my family was not having it. So I didn't play the drums, but I wanted to really badly. Um, I played, well, I mean, like the first instrument I played violin for 1 year and I was horrendous in third grade. Um, I was not good. I didn't care. I wasn't good in school. So I wasn't, That was not a good example. And it's also following my brother. My brother played viola for like 9 years. So yeah, I played violin for 1 year, didn't pan out. And then I played saxophone in 6th grade. I played alto. Once again, I wanted to play the drums, but they didn't have any available spots in the school band. So I played alto sax because I was like, I guess that's an instrument. And at the time, I'm like exclusively listening to hip hop. So like I don't really listen to anything else. It's like I by 8th grade things changed a bit, but uh, yeah, violin and alto sax and then tenor sax I played in 8th grade, and I started playing guitar around the same time, which is also when I started making music because I lied my way into a band. Uh, they asked me if I knew anyone who sang. And at the time, I had been in a couple like community theater plays, and I was like, "Yeah, I could sing." I sang a solo in one play, like, sure. And I said I could sing and I could play guitar, but it wasn't. I couldn't play guitar at all. I played it like, I mean, they're right behind me. I guess I could technically show it, but like, I played it with the. It was just completely like on my lap with like it was acoustic, so the sound hole is facing up, and I would play with my thumb on each, like I'd play with my thumb on the fretboard like this, and I couldn't play at all for like 6 months, or yeah, I'll say 6 months, and then I joined the band, and I was like, yeah, I could play guitar, but I couldn't play at all, and then I had to really like make up for my lie. So I started learning as quickly as I could. I didn't take lessons or anything like that. I'm all self-taught. I'm self-taught on everything uh, that I play. Is that right? Yeah, pretty much. Voice, my brother has helped out a bit, but yeah, I never went to school. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to. I went to community college. I dropped out, and I didn't take any, like I never had any music lessons or anything like that. I was very narrow-minded when I started out.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I had like the same sort of thing happen. I knew around the time that I was 8 or 9, and I didn't think about like solo work at all. Oh, I gotta have a band, so I went and lied to everybody in school and told them I started a band. Yeah, I play guitar, I sing, play the keyboards, all that. I didn't know how to do any of that. Oh, I remember when I picked up a guitar for the first time. I started like playing around with it. Like, what the fuck is this? How can you even do this? Because my fingers were so small. And then I played for maybe about a year, and then finally a couple of things. But out of all well, first of all, what instruments do you play?
Okay, I play without getting into like uh things that repeat themselves. Like if I say I play glockenspiel, a little bell kit, it's the same thing as a piano. Like the way that they're so it's I'm not gonna say. I mean, I already said it, but you know what I mean. I play guitar. I play bass guitar, um, drums, uh, a little bit of keyboards. I'm not the best, but I do play it. Um, I think that's it. Like in the real run of things, it's like yes, I play synths. I play, I do stuff with samples. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it.
What would you consider to be the instrument that you're the best?
I'm always the guitarist and stuff to the point that I hate it. I've actually disliked playing guitar for longer than I've liked playing guitar because I don't actually um, want to do it. Like I wanted to play the drums. So, playing guitar is kind of like, oh, okay. Like, this is cool, but it wasn't at all what I wanted to do. Um, but yeah, I definitely think I have the most time playing that. Like, I've started with guitar and then everything else came from there. Or I'd say my voice, to be honest, is probably the thing I'm the best at, which is quite a fucking brag. But I've been singing for longer than anything else. And um, I used to have a podcast once upon a time.
Oh, really?
Uh, back when nobody did. I had a podcast in 2005. Uh, yeah. And that's actually how I kind of started recording, was because I knew how to record. I had a desktop. It wasn't even mine. It was the family computer. Um, and I had a very cheap clip-on microphone, but I would record with my, you know, Virgin Mobile, uh, whatever the hell, cell phone, and portable tape recorders and stuff like that. That I learned how to record before I learned how to do anything else. And even then, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing for another, I don't know. I mean, years, like years of stuff. I didn't perform for the first time until 2013, and I started making music in 2005. So, you know, I was very afraid to show and sing in front of people.
What? So, do you have any songs recorded dating back to 2005? Like
Oh
any
yeah.
classics or anything like that?
I don't have them out. They're not released. But I definitely have them. I have everything. Um, I joked about it for years, where I'm just like, oh, when I die, I'll be like Prince. You know, you could release an album a year, because I do write a lot of songs. Um, and I have an overwhelming amount of work. Actually, this is a good little segue. For my, I just released an album. It's called Oof. It's a compilation album of stuff I did um, between 2011 and 2017. And um, there's songs on there that, you know, that's before I even started playing live. Um, and I went through over 300 songs to put the compilation together. And then there's, you know, and there's stuff that goes back even farther than that that I didn't put on there because it's not good. It's
So,
not good enough. I'm a very strict.
yeah. So like, how has your recording process changed over the years?
It's changed immeasurably. I mean, I literally used to start. There's some songs. There's a song on Oof that I recorded in my car on a portable tape recorder with just my acoustic guitar, called "Lonely and Cold," which is not one of my favorites. But I was like, this needs to be on there because it fits. Um, since then, I've uh, I mean, I got a laptop in 2010 when I graduated high school. Um, and that was like my, like, okay, you're not going to college, but like, here's something type of thing. Cause my brother went to college. He went through all that. He's in tremendous debt. It's very bad. But, um, yeah, I mean, I started with like cassettes, and then I went to doing stuff on the computer, and sometimes now I use a little bit of both. Um, I record in really unorthodox ways because I kind of refuse to believe that there is a right way to record. You know, there was a local studio, being from Norwalk, Connecticut. A friend of mine worked, and he went to school to record. And I remember him telling me, like, oh, well, this is how you mic code, you know, whatever. Drum kit is usually the thing where people are like, how good can you record? How good are you at recording? Like, let's see how you do a drum kit. Which for me, I only use 3 mics or maybe 4. But like, the big studios, they do like 16. I mean, they do so much work just to get a sound, and I'm a lot more minimalist in how I think. I don't even use an amp for my guitar. Like I don't like I have an amp, but I don't use it's only for live performances, which obviously, as we know now, are a thing of the past. But yeah, I don't even use an amp. I just plug straight in, and I got pedals. I don't even really use amp simulations, like the little things on recording programs. I just kind of plug into a see, it's so nice in here on my gear. I plug into this, which I've had forever. There's a lot of dust on it at the moment. I should probably clean it. Um, but I plug into that and just kind of shape my tone, and I got all my pedals. I have an overwhelming amount of pedals. I can't pick that board up, but I have a lot of stuff. You just have to take my word for it. And yeah, I mean, now I've been living in apartments for the past 5 years and grew up living in a condo and a very small house where the neighbors are close by, and I can't be loud. So the hardest thing is always recording drums. Because now I don't play them. I mean, I do, but I don't. I use a lot of samples that I've recorded from the past. Obviously, that's what recordings are. They're always from the past. And or sometimes I have little drum machines. I got like this bad boy is a Korg Volca sampler, which is very fun. Or I have a very old drum machine that I got for like $20. A lot of my stuff is broken. I don't come from much, so I kind of, you gotta work with what you got.
You've been able to get like so. I listened to everything that you had available on Spotify, and
Oh, awesome.
that you record in those like unorthodox ways because you'd never be able to tell. The way you can get it to sound just so crisp and sounds like it was recorded in an actual studio. And coming from somebody who also makes albums in my bedroom, it's tough to get it to sound like that. So what, as far as like mixing, how did that start for you?
Okay. Thank you, by the way. It is, I really do appreciate that because it's taken a long time for me to like it. Well, okay. Um, so the stuff that's on Oof, um, it's almost all done on the computer. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I read a lot of tutorials. I read a lot of, stuff like that. And Sleeping Alone, I did on a cassette, 4-track recorder. And it's changed how I mix things. So now how I mix things is more like how I did it on the 4-track recorder, which is I don't really use my eyes, which is good because I'm kind of as blind as a bat anyway. And I just use my ears. I try not to do an overwhelming amount of overdubs because I've been known to do that. Uh, and I mean, I don't know. How do I start with mixing? I mix as I go. I don't mix after the fact. So it's like if I don't have a good sound going in, I don't think it's gonna sound good. Like, it's like if you start with a good sound, it's a lot easier to just have it sound good in general. And the biggest thing that I've learned really is that I use I don't have a lot of mics in general. Um, and I don't have like a fancy preamp or anything like that. But just from moving the microphone back a little bit, it sounds different. Where it's there's less bass and you hear more of the room. I don't know if any of this is translating right now because we're on Skype, but um, I've learned that you don't need to. Close miking is a great thing, but everything sounds like it's close up to your ear. So if you make it sound like it's farther away just by literally moving the recording device, whatever it is, um, that in itself makes a 3D picture a little better. You can create depth a little better just by actually moving it and thinking of it like it is whatever, like you're sitting in an audience, or it's like, okay, there's two guitars there. And but Sleeping Alone helped me a lot. That's the big that's the album I put out in 2017. um because recording on tape, you can't do much um after the fact. Like, it's like you record it and then it's like, okay, like I could record it again and then lose that take, or so it made me think about mixing in a way of arranging is a big thing, where it's like I'd have I make very strict rules for myself. So I got one that's like, for that album it's like, okay, I don't want to have any instruments playing the same thing the same way. So it's like, if I'm going to play it the same way, I have to use a different instrument, um or I record at a different speed often. That's a big thing that I do, is I'll record, like, let's say I do a normal guitar track, and then I'll slow it down and then tune to it so that I could play it at whatever tuning it's playing at slower, because it would be lower in pitch. And then when you speed it back up to normal, it sounds different. It's a good way of just, making sounds that would normally, it's like, oh, okay, it's just your conventional, two guitars or vocals or whatever. But by layering it with different speeds, you get these really different colors, um, that you just can't get any other way. And it doesn't have anything really to do with mixing. It's just how you're going about recording it. It's like a drum will decay a lot quicker. Uh, so suddenly you don't need to worry about cleaning up the drums that much, because they don't take up as much space. If that.
So yeah, that makes sense. So for Sleeping Alone, when did you go into that writing those songs knowing you wanted to come out of it with an album that you were going to put out? Or like, how did that start from the beginning?
So I always, for years, I'd be like, I think in albums, but as time goes on, I try not to, because I'll go years without releasing anything. Like, I went a couple years after without releasing anything. I should also say I was in another band at one point called Control V, around SoundCloud and Bandcamp, I believe. Um, it was myself and a good friend of mine, uh, who performs under the name. What is their name? It's VXO, I think 1500. I think that's what they perform under. I never remember, and I'm dyslexic. I think that's it. But yeah, 5100. Yeah, VXO 5100. They're very good. Phenomenal musician and vocalist, stuff like that. And I learned a lot about recording just from doing that project. It's very different. But yeah, I'll go a long time without releasing anything if I'm always thinking in albums. So Sleeping Alone was my first solo output, because before I was making stuff for Beau Dega and I was making stuff for Control V. And it's why Oof is like really rocks, because that was like, okay, I'm like, Control V was a little bit more R&B focused and just, non-traditional drum patterns and um, just a lot more different influences because honestly, I got sick of sounding like a rock. I don't listen to rock, which might be surprising because of a lot of the music that I've made, but I very rarely listen to rock um, because I'm kind of tired of it. And um, so there's songs on Sleeping Alone that I had written for Control V, but Control V was kind of not a thing. Oh, actually, this is my bandmate right here. I forgot. I'm wearing them on my shirt. When it's hot out, you got to wear the big shirts. What am I saying? I tend to ramble, so I'm sorry if this doesn't make any sense. Um, did I start it as an album? No, I didn't start it with an album in mind. I started recording it with an album in mind, but I wrote the songs um, throughout a couple years, and like I don't know. I should look at the track list. You'd think I just know this, but a lot of time has. I mean, even that came out 3 years ago. Um,
Not listen to my albums either.
I mean, I listen to it. I listen to my music more than anyone should. Um, I thoroughly enjoy my music. I have no shame in that. I I got no problem with that. I don't care anymore because I used to get really insecure and be like, oh God, it's me. But then I'm like, why am I like shaming myself? It's like I should be really enjoying the fact that this is, what I do. Um, okay, so Sleeping Alone. Yeah, I wrote um Bittersweet Love is a song on there, and that is the oldest song. I think I wrote that in 2015. And I just wrote it for me. And then like it would be like, okay, but maybe this could work with Control V, which had a different sound. Which was very layered and stuff like that. It was very cool. If you're ever bored, feel free to check it out because it's a lot more shoegazy and dreamy sounding and really cool stuff. Um, but I wrote, yeah, so it's like Bittersweet Love was written just as a song. I Don't Need No Man, I just wrote and we did a Control V version of it, but we didn't release it because it didn't sound, we weren't satisfied with it. So that album was kind of a bunch of me being like, it was a lot of time where I was like, should I release this? Should I put these songs on it? Because when I recorded it, I thought of it as not a solo song, but they were my songs. Because in the partnership I was in the duo, we would write really like parts of songs. Like I'd write a verse, then they write a verse. I had a simple chorus, they have a bridge, and then we'd piece it all together. Um, and but I had, my songs are pretty short. If there's not someone else working on it, they're usually around like 2 minutes long. And that was kind of the case. So it's like Hypnagogia. I have no idea if that's how you're supposed to say it. That's a song I wrote literally in my sleep because I'm prescribed lots of medication. And I woke up in my closet, which is where I normally reside. And the song was there. Like it was already there. I have the original recording of that. It's 15 minutes long. I won't be sharing that with anyone. But it definitely is more of a compilation album of songs that I had just written over the years. And some of them are kind of filler songs, but people like them. Like Bliss is kind of a filler song, and that's a song that like people love And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really the most proud of the lyrics. You're like, they're very simple. I just kind of, just sang a melody and then was like, sure, this fits in. And that's how I did the lyrics. I didn't think ahead of time or anything like that because there's some songs I stress over the lyrics for like days or months. Um, Flowers from Home is another filler song. Um, just because I just wrote it and recorded it in a day. That was the benefit of sleeping alone. Doing it on tape, I was like, oh, I could just do this like in like an hour, and like that's it. Like that's how the song sounds. Like great. Um, yeah, it was it changed how I went about recording since because now it's like, okay, if I record one of my most recent releases, Anything for You, I wrote and recorded that in an hour and a half. I just did it and hoped that it would work. I was like, this is fun. What's it about? I don't know. Like, I just used lyrics that I had already written for other things, because I write down a lot of lines, but I don't always finish shit, where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's, I get around like a Beach Boys wet dream. I've written that years ago, and I was like, I don't know, I haven't really fit it in anywhere, so that's the first line in that song.
Mhm. So what?
Um,
Sorry, what were you saying?
no, you can go.
Oh, so when you write songs, like what is your process of writing a song? What do you usually go to first?
Um, I will. Hmm, see, it changes a lot. So a lot of songs I'll just kind of just be like strumming around on my guitar, and maybe a melody will come, and then I could fit in lyrics that I had previously written. Um, it really depends on the song. Like I released Bombs or Back on My Bullshit a couple whenever the hell I put that out. When did I put that out? 2 years ago? What is time? Uh, and that I wrote on the subway, but I wasn't thinking about any music like at all. I just wrote it out and then I was like, whatever, like the music will find its way. And it took me about a month to actually figure out what that would work with. Um, and I just kind of started strumming my guitar. And once I got a general, I'll do like a couple demos on my phone. The phone is the audition. If I get a good demo on my phone, then I could bring it to my computer or whatever. But my demos always start on my phones. And I write everything with either acoustic guitar or like a piano or a keyboard. I don't have a piano anymore. Um, so yeah, I'll just more often than not, I will record me really just like mumbling words.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like, just like I don't know how to sing, and then hopefully I'll fill in the blanks. Um, and then there's some stuff where like the lyrics were just like it all came together. Like the song "Sleeping Alone," it all came together at the same time. I wrote the vocal part, I wrote the lyrics and I wrote the guitar part all at the same time. I don't really ever start with drums or with a rhythm in mind. I'll record that way, but that's not how I go about writing. Um, yeah, partially because I tend to do things uh, just I do things in an unorthodox way a lot of the time, where it's like I'll record I'll write it where it's like there's like there's 6 bars instead of 4, or it's oops, it switched into 3/4 for literally 1 bar. Just like my songs will kind of go all over the place uh, sometimes, and it's hard to program it in a recording way where it's like, okay, these are how I, unless I really know like for beat how things are gonna go. But I'm not good at counting. I don't. I'm not the best. Like I have good rhythm, I'd like to say. I have good rhythm, but I don't count worth a damn. Like I'm so bad at it. Where it's like with a band, it'd be like, okay, so this is 12 bars of this, and I'll be like, yeah, and I'll be counting it wrong, and I'll get lost. I have to really hear it and feel it, because if not, it doesn't feel earned. And then I'm like, well, then why is it changing at 12 bars? Like you should do it in, or like it's where I kind of get to be a pain in the ass. Um, Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh no, it definitely. Oh, do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
Yes, I have it.
Oh, do
See,
you?
I wish I could. I wish I could actually like play stuff, but maybe another time we could figure out how things like that work. But yeah, I got it. It's not good. I don't know the words. Uh, but I think it's called "I Feel," and it rocked. Um, but I like can't play guitar really, and I like scream.
You can play guitar very well.
Hmm?
See, I disagree with you. I think you can play guitar very well.
I think now I could play guitar pretty well, but at the time I could not at all. But I mean, like, to me, it's crazy that I play guitar at all because it was not in the cards. I busted my wrist when I was in fifth grade. It's when I got a guitar, but I didn't play it for 3 years because I fucked up my wrist. I don't really feel in my left hand. Like I'm doing this and I don't feel my palm, even though I'm touching it. So it never seemed like it was possible uh, for me to really play anything. That's what the local music store right by me told me. They were just like, I don't think it's gonna work out. If you can't feel the neck of the fucking guitar, then you're not gonna be able to, you're not gonna be able to play. Um, but just goes to show that you could. But at first, it was very difficult. There's a lot of I got some ways of playing that I've learned in a more how to play in a more conventional manner, but at the time there was a lot of like harmonics and stuff where it's like it's like if you're playing guitar and you don't have your fingers completely pressed down on the note, you can make the string ring out. Uh, and I don't even. Can I just
Yeah, go ahead, grab one.
see if I could do this? Let's see if this works. So I'd be like, you hear the sort of, or where's there's that. I would be playing stuff and it would just sort of, I don't even know how to go about showing it because I can't really play like that anymore. But there used to be a lot of like, so it's almost like a little like, I couldn't, it wasn't the best. Like, I play with my thumb a lot. I do a lot of stuff that you're not supposed to really do. Um, and yeah, that's the first song I remember playing. It's literally like, it's like very like simple and like I'm like all over the place on that, and it's very distorted. Um, yeah, I think the yeah, I'll just leave it at that before I go on another diatribe.
What was the first guitar? Like, I see you've got a couple of guitars.
I've got a whole bunch. My first guitar is my acoustic, because my mom made me convince her that it was worth getting an electric.
Mhm.
She was like, because my mom played acoustic, also self-taught, by the way, and she did not teach me how to play. She was like, nope, you got to learn how I learned. So I was like, okay. And we do stuff that's kind of similar, which is really funny because we'll play like, instead of like, this is a G chord. Ah, beautiful. But I won't always fret the root, and she does the same thing. So, but that's my first guitar, and then I got this like blue electric one after that, which I hate, and I don't use it. I can't sell it because it's my first electric.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could show you all my. Um, oh yeah, let there be rock, you know. um, And then this, which I'm going to change, the pick guard was painted by a friend of mine, but I'm going to change it at some point because I don't want to ruin this. And it doesn't really, it doesn't really fit in the way that it once did when I was making music. My taste has changed a little bit, but this is my main recording guitar. And it's a very weird Squire. I got it for 150 bucks. Has a Telecaster neck, has a strap body. There's no tone knob. This is how you pick your pickup. Uh, and so I was supposed to be an electrical engineer. um, I come from a working class family. We're all, you're supposed to know a trade, stuff like that. Like my dad fixes driveways. Um, and, it was very much pushed on me where they're like, okay, he's not the brightest. So let's get a good trade going for him. Not to say that people who do those jobs are stupid. They're not. They're much smarter because you try to fix something. But I did I switch out pickups on every guitar, almost every guitar, and I do all the wiring myself. I added, I'll mod out everything. Like this has locking tuners. It has all this stuff where it's not just a $150 guitar, but and I totally took all of the resale value out of it by doing that, even though it's, I put way more than $150 worth of gear into it. But yeah, um, but I'll use that on probably every song, almost almost every song I have. And I just got my most recent guitar is it's this from what's plugged in. It's this from like the 60s, I want to say. It's a Kingston, and um it's 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 funky. It's weird. It's a weird little thing. I got it because for a really shallow reason. Um which is that I joined a friend of mine's band, Power Violet, who's phenomenal. She makes great music. Um, she was like, "Hey, I got some gigs coming up. I need someone to play lead guitar." Um, and it was my first time playing lead guitar in a long time because I don't really do that. Um, and I was like, "Fuck it." Like I've been in like writer's block. I need to do something. But I was like, "Oh shit!" Like this is gonna sound really shallow, but none of my guitars like fit the aesthetic.
No, I get exactly
You know,
what you're saying.
it's like things are taboo. If I go out with that like metalhead guitar, people would be like, "Oh, look at this asshole." And I am very self-conscious, so so I got this, and partially because I always wanted something. I needed a good excuse to get um, something like this, where it's got a shorter scale neck and um, it has a tremolo. It's very fun to play, and It feels like a fucking toy, which is very fun. But
So,
yeah,
how has your style musically changed since you started making music?
okay. Um, I used to listen to a lot of hip hop, and then when I joined the band, was the band that I was in, which I don't even remember the fucking name of at the moment. Um, emo music was really big, which I didn't listen to it because I was overweight, so I was too fat to be emo. Was I could be goth, you know. It wasn't okay for me to, you know, all the skaters, they were skinny minis, and I didn't fit in with them. So um, and I didn't really like punk. So, which was the other thing that was kind of big. It was like that like skate punk type of music. Like, you know, people listen to like Blink 182 and stuff like that. And it wasn't really for me. Um, which I've learned to appreciate it over the time, but my core influences are still not rooted in that. But I listen to a lot of older stuff because um, I'm very interested in how things start. So it's like, oh, okay, like, you know, a band like whatever. I mean, like it's just like any, you know, modern rock band. What do they listen to? You know, what did Nirvana listen to? Like I liked Nirvana, but what did they, you know, draw influences from, or what did the Smashing Pumpkins or whatever? Um, so suddenly I find about like My Bloody Valentine or like Black Sabbath or just listening to the Beatles. Beatles are one of my favorite groups ever. It's how I learned how to record was through listening to stuff that they did. Because there's no computers. They had no computers and they did all that shit. So it's like, oh, okay. My style's probably changed the most in the way that it's like more music that I write now. It doesn't really, but then see, it changes. I used to rock a lot more, partially because coming out of hip hop that was very aggressive. You know, I listened to, I mean, fucking like I used to listen to NWA and Ghetto Boys and uh, Dr. Dre, a lot of West Coast stuff. Wu Tang Clan, there's a little East Coast. That was aggressive. So I was like, okay, well, the music I make it should probably be somewhat aggressive. And it's changed over the years. I don't think I'm as aggressive as I used to be. But uh, I got really, around like 2012, I got really bored listening to rock. And since that happened, um, I've changed how I go about writing and changed the music that I make a lot. Where I started listening to jazz. I listen to a lot of jazz still. Um, I listen to a lot of stuff from Brazil, which kind of has to do with jazz, but like, you know, different stuff. A lot of like the like psychedelic music that they made in the 70s. Some really good stuff. And it's different than anything that you'd hear here. So it's um you know, stuff like that. The past couple years I've been um because I do a lot of digging. I do a lot of like I'm like I gotta know everything about it. So if people have a lot of music, like I got into like Parliament Funkadelic, which there's so much music to listen to, which was so much fun. Because my, you know, it's like, okay, I listened to Prince, I listened to Jimi Hendrix, but there's something in the middle there. And then I found that and fell in love with that for a whole bunch. Listened to James Brown, listened to, you know, a lot of different um, things that just, you know, I don't like a lot of punk rock because I hated the crowd because they didn't really let you, you know, oh, well, that's not punk, you know, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that there's, you know, it's like the punk police. I can't stand it. It's just like, oh, what you're doing is not punk. I've never apparently been defined as punk, even though I have been making music on my own for fucking so long. I'm self-taught. I started with cassettes, you know, but I'm not a punk. I don't make punk rock apparently. Um, and it's definitely been a chip on my shoulder, so it makes me listen to other things where I'm just like, okay, well, let's see what it's like over here, because things are a lot more accepting in other worlds, in other genres, and you could do a lot more. Where it's like, I feel like still, like right now, it's like the rock world compared to what's going on in hip hop. Like in rock, it's just like, okay, cool. Like you wrote a song. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love some newer bands for sure, but um, you get to play with characters, you get to do a lot more other stuff in these other genres, um, that are a lot more theatrical. And I listen to a lot of David Bowie and T-Rex, um, just bands that would kind of, I don't know. It's just I think what I listen to definitely is reflected in what I make, but also I listen to myself so much that I kind of, especially with the last, the Oof project of me listening to over 300 fucking songs of mine, um, I've become more inspired in stuff that from myself than I've ever been. And
I just
uh,
want to explain because I know exactly where you're coming from there. And I know like a lot of people say like, oh, why would you listen to your own music, fucking douchebag or whatever? Because it's like, oh, you think that you're just so self-absorbed, you just want to listen to your own music. Well, I listen to my own music a lot too, and then I get exactly where you're coming from because I make music that I want to hear.
mhm.
So when you do that, like when I make albums, um, more recently it's been more album work, but the past 3-4 years or so, it's just been mostly writing for me. But
Mhm.
then I would put out like sporadic songs here and there. But when I went into this last project that I just put out, I just wanted to make an album that was something I wasn't hearing that I wish I could hear because I always have like melodies in my head and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just an extremely like musical person, so I get where you're coming from. Where being inspired by yourself as well. Like if I listen to an album I made 4 years ago, and then I listen to a song I just made yesterday, seeing that improvement is
Yeah.
incredible. So it gets you to a point where you just want to keep improving and improving and be like, oh, I like how I did that. Maybe I could have done that differently. Next song I do, I'm going to implement both of those things. And then you end up getting to a point where, and like, I'm self taught on everything as well.
Mhm.
So go through this intense personal experience with just yourself, nobody else in the room. And I think that that's what's great about solo artists is that we don't have people coming in and saying, no, don't do that, do this,
Yeah.
and all that kind of. You have complete creative control. So I think that that's incredible that you have that same viewpoint too. Um,
I
so
feel
like,
like you have to. I mean,
yeah,
like that's where it's like, I've done it the other way. That's the other thing, where it's like, because I've been doing this shit for so long, you know, I didn't show anyone my music until I was over 20, and I started when I was 13. So, yeah, that sounds about right. I started when I was 13. I didn't show anyone my music. I mean, I was in a band for 1 year, or not even. I quit, um, because I wanted to do something different. And I've learned more about music from people saying, when I would show people stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, this kind of sounds like this," and I'd be like, "I don't know what the fuck that is." Like, I've never heard of a lot of, it's like, I'd love to say that I was like, yes, I was there when the first, whatever album came out, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have my ear to the, I'm maybe too self-absorbed sometimes to know what the hell's going on. Um, but I really have just learned that I personally feel better about my stuff if I it's too much effort to pretend that I don't enjoy my own stuff.
Yeah.
Which, especially where you always hear the mistakes and stuff like that. And it takes a long time to accept those mistakes as maybe being beneficial. Um, which is why that my most recent the oof thing was it was so important to me because there's a lot of songs on there. They're very different stylistically, and they're very different in how I went about recording it. You could really hear I didn't do it in a chronological order of how I recorded it, but you could really hear different ideas and different ways of doing stuff because I don't like to do things the same way twice. Um, it's part of the reason I don't really enjoy playing live is because I don't want to try to replicate something that I was able to do in my bedroom at 2 a.m. completely alone, like on a stage in front of however many people, if there's fucking anyone there in the first place. But like, um, yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of it's once again it's that big difference where it's like rock music, which like I don't think anyone in that world really would even call what they make rock, but that's just the world that it is. It's like the DIY scene and stuff like that, which I just wrote a lovely song about, by the way, because I don't fucking like them, because they're mostly homophobic and lots of other stuff, but that's another, I won't get on that right now. um, um, you're not allowed to be confident because you're a jerk if you're confident. Oh, look at this asshole, who does he think he is? And it's like, no, I don't think I'm like God's gift to anything. I mean, one, yeah, there's a lot of things to break down in that sentence, but like uh the modesty, I feel like, only gets, it's just exhausting. Where it's just like, yeah, here's this song, I made it, whatever. You probably don't fucking care. Because over the years, I've also recorded and produced other artists. And, you know, all of us are self-conscious. Everyone in general is self-conscious. We are all, now more than ever, because, we always have a camera, we always have a phone, we're always, we have to, constantly create material, even if you're someone who doesn't create content like that. Like, you know, your aunt's Facebook page is fucking lit with shit. Like, like it's crazy the content that they'll create. Like people who you'd never think were creative at all doing stuff. So, it suddenly the game has changed, and the life of the reluctant rock star is just not for me, where it's like, yeah, like I did this, but like who even cares? It's just like I'm like, well, fuck, I hope you care about it, because if not, I might not. It's like I'd have to try to, working with other artists, I'd be like, come on, like if you don't care about yourself, why should I care about you? Like you gotta fucking convince yourself and convince me that this is good, because I know it's good, but you don't know it's good. So you got to know that what you're doing is good. It could be the worst fucking song you've ever written, and it's still better than not writing a song.
Exactly.
And like that is still something I struggle with. I don't like to play live. I don't like to be on camera. Like this is very different for me. I mean, people usually don't see me uh, much in general, especially now. But it's something that I've learned to just kind of accept, and it's a slow learning process. I grew up overweight. That doesn't help. Uh, I sold drugs for 4 years. That was my college. And, I was like, no one wants to see their fucking drug dealer, cry on stage. singing about, suicide. I mean, I mean, maybe some people do, but it didn't help my fucking street cred. It wasn't like it's like in a world where you got to be fucking tough because I've been robbed countless times or whatever because it's happened. Um, you know, Suddenly showing that you have a sensitive side um, is liberating, but it's very fucking difficult. So it's like, hey, look, like, you know, be confident in what you make. I mean, like, I think that doing a podcast just like this, I think this is one of the bravest things people could do because this isn't really edited. You're just talking. You can make a complete fool of yourself. It's like there's lots of risks, but there's also the other side of it where it's like, yeah, like this, it's very liberating. It's very freeing where it's like, it's very, powerful to be able to uh, own what you do.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I've always told everybody, like you were saying, like you produce other artists, and I have as well. And it's what when somebody I understand when you start working on music for the first time, you're gonna be extremely self conscious about it, and it's gonna take you a while. It took me honestly 6 years before I finally got to a point where I felt like I was making music that was good enough for people to listen to and enjoy.
Yeah.
And then that's the biggest thing is you if you really want to do it, if you have your heart set on being a musician, if you really want to make records, you want to do all that kind of stuff, nobody is just naturally an incredible musician. It takes a lot of work, and you learn so much about yourself in those years that you're
Hmm.
struggling to create something good. And when you finally come out of it to a point where you're making music that you actually like and other people do as well, it's just such a liberating experience. Because no, and then this is whenever you put music out into the world, it's like you take something that you spend maybe even years
Hmm.
work put it out there to the public. And that's the thing about the internet. Everybody can see it if they want to.
Yeah.
Anybody can. But you leave yourself open to be criticized by millions of people. But then you're never gonna make something that everybody's gonna like.
No.
When you do have those people who reach out to you and say, "Hey, like I just listened to your shit and I'm really fucking with it," and like that kind of thing, it makes however many people might dislike it worth it. And if you like it yourself, then that makes it so much easier for you to
Hmm.
process all of those kinds of things. So like your songs, like your lyrics are deeply personal. So when you're writing music, what are you thinking about? Like, I know it's kind of a weird question, but when you
Um,
have to actually write lyrics, how does that go for you?
um, it really depends on the song because some songs are actually not very personal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the song uh, will win in the end, where it's like, for me, the song will tell me what it needs to be, if that makes any sense. In the way that, like, because, I don't want to make it sound like it's this divine, like it just came to me. But there is a part of it where it's like, I mean, I could show here, you know what? I should actually. So I wrote something the other day because I do a lot of writing exercises. That's something that partially because I don't want to lose this. I have this big fear, especially because I've been doing this for so long that I've peaked, which I don't think is true, but it is a fear that I have often. I'm like, oh my God, like what if this is it? Like I'm almost 30 and like what if it's over? Where in reality, um, I don't think it's the case. But so I wrote something the other day I'm not gonna read it because it's unedited. But um, I wrote down. My partner has a lot a lot of books, and I wrote down a bunch of book titles, and I just tried to fit those book titles into a song because sometimes the words don't always come to me. So I'll be like, what if I just kind of gave myself a writing prompt, you know, uh, because the song needs to be made. Um, a song like Soft Boy, I wrote the chorus years before I wrote the verses because I couldn't come up with a verse. I couldn't come up with where the verse would go chord wise. And so I didn't have anywhere for it to go lyrically. I just knew that I had soft boys sipping on the Croix because it's funny, and uh, I just thought, oh, here's a funny little rhymey thing that's catchy. Like you could hum it, you could sing it, whatever. But I kept playing that, and then I just slid my hand down to the chord that I start the verse on, and it just gave me the mood of, oh, this is where this goes. And I have a lot of I reference a lot of stuff in my songs. I don't know if anyone ever picks up on it, but because it's vague. Like I love the Kinks.
Oh, me too.
Uh, Lola was sipping on Coca-Cola. It's one of my favorite quotes. Was Why was Lola sipping on Coca-Cola? Because it rhymes. You know, there doesn't always need to be a reason for everything, but sometimes it just works and it sets the scene. So soft boys. What the fuck are the fucking lyrics? I don't even know. They drink LaCroix. LaCroix was huge, and I thought of it like the Coca-Cola type of thing. There's a line in it in that song that's "Do you remember that November?" which is kind of my homage to September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is "Do you remember?" Because it's just something about it that, it sounds familiar, but it's not because it's, chord wise, melody wise, lyric wise, everything is different, but it's that familiarity that is a nice starting point, and then everything else should kind of fit into place. There's definitely some songs I've written that have just kind of been like a ramble. Like Bombs is just me rambling. I just rambled and wrote down a bunch of thoughts and just had. That's why it's like if you count the verses on that, they're it's all over the place. One of them's 8 bars, one of them's 15. Who the fuck knows? Because I just wrote the lyrics and I had the refrain, rain cloud over my head, but that's it. So I just wrote that out almost, I didn't really edit it at all, the lyrics themselves, but it just sort of came where I was like, okay, I am schizoaffective, um, which is a fancy way of saying I'm bipolar and sometimes I hear things. Um, and I struggle with depression. And this is something that sometimes when I tell an audience, they clear the room. And which, hey, whatever. But somebody's got to fucking talk about it. And now I've been doing this long enough where I've heard people say, hey, like, I like your music. It really helps me get through whatever, very beautiful things to tell me. And I'm like, okay, well, I just got to keep digging deeper. I just have to keep, a lot of songs I don't know what they're about until I've already written it and maybe recorded it and maybe released it. Like I try not to think too much about the lyrics because then I won't put it out because I'll be like, "Oh god. Like is this really the conversation I want to have later?" Like, so what, you want to kill yourself? Well, maybe, you know. Sometimes I have felt that way. Yeah. I think we'd all be lying if, I mean, most people I do feel like that way sometimes. Um, but here I am, so, fucking who cares? I'm not promoting it, but it's something that had to happen. Being sad is not something that I want to be. Uh, but it is something that I tend to be. So talking about it and singing about it for me is a way of facing it head on, and uh, writing. You know, I mean, some stuff doesn't make any sense to me literally when I'm writing it. There's a song, Marriage, I'm Sleeping Alone. It's literally just me rambling. I just did it. I just did a stream of conscious. I write a lot of songs just kind of stream of conscious, and I'm like, hopefully that's good. Okay, see you. Like, next, just to get it out, just to see what the hell I'm really thinking about. Because I'm a barista, I had a customer come in, and they heard that song, and they were like, so who got a divorce? Are your parents divorced? And I was like, what? And they were like, your parents, are they divorced? And I was like, yeah. How would you know that? And the guy was like, I listened to one of your songs and it seemed like it was about your parents are divorced. Like, that's what I got from it. And I was like, what the fuck song did you I don't mention that in any of, like, it's not really something. I'm at the age where my parents being divorced when I was fucking 12 years old, it doesn't really matter. I don't look at it in a way where I'm like, oh, what if? Like, things have changed. It's like, not to say I don't care, but I don't care. Life goes on. Um, but apparently, somewhere in myself, subconscious, I do care about the idea of, why get together if you're just going to break up or whatever, those types of relationships. Um, and, I won't know what the hell it's about until, I mean, like, that guy said it. And then I was like, holy shit, that is what that fucking song is about. Like, I had no idea. And I wrote the song, I don't know, 4 years before he told me that. And I, like, so for me, writing is really, it's a tool to learn about yourself.
Oh,
And um things are not all verbatim, you know. uh it's also a great time, it's also a great way to put yourself in someone else's shoes, is what I've learned. I have a lot of songs that are just about me,
absolutely.
but from someone else's perspective, because I tend to be critical of myself, obviously. But just to kind of imagine, or maybe I'm quoting someone, and um yeah, that's all I got for that without going too long.
So to kind of like get things to wrap this up a little bit, I have one question that doesn't have to do with music, and that question is, what when you're not making music, what other things do you enjoy doing?
Okay. uh I now have hobbies. I didn't for years, but because of quarantine, I've forced myself to get hobbies. And I've been in a relationship now for almost 3 years, and I've learned that everything I did prior to that relationship, which was mostly just being a bunch of other very short-term relationships and stuff like that, was stuff that I did alone, such as I didn't watch TV, I didn't stream shit. Like, I'm very strict with certain things where I'm like, nope, this is how I live. Sorry. Uh, you know, People would be like, do you play any video game? No, I don't play games, but I now have like a Nintendo Switch. I play Animal Crossing. Um, I grew up playing Sonic games, so I play, some games like that. Mario Brothers, whatever. I read comic books. Um, I bought an iPad to read comic books. because I missed reading comic books. I'm very much a fan of uh, embracing the things that I loved as a kid, but as an adult, because it meant something then and it could mean something now. Um, and yeah, so I've been reading comic books. I've been playing some games. I write a lot, which has nothing to do with making music. I write little scenes. I write in my journal. I write poetry. Um, I like to cook. That's a big thing that I definitely do. I'm assuming you're Italian with that last name of yours. It's a big thing. It's the same here. So, I mean, my real last name comes with a plate of meatballs. It's so fucking Italian. So, or brajol. So cooking is definitely a big thing, and uh, I listen to podcasts. I've listened to your podcasts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course. You asked me to be on. I gotta do my homework.
Yeah,
Um,
we're just starting around here, so it's like kind of fixing the kinks out as we go.
yeah. Hey, nothing starts from nothing. You got to start somewhere. And like, you know, I think it's great what you're doing. Um, I don't know. What else do I fucking do? That's about it. I read comics, I play video games, I cook. I don't exercise. I should. I know a lot of people go to the gym. I'm not one of those people. I'm too afraid of everything. Um, the quarantine has really hit home on my um, agoraphobia. It's really helped that one out. Where it's just like, don't go outside, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. I probably shouldn't go outside. So a lot of the things I do, I watch a ton of movies. That's something I watch a ton of movies. I've watched all the Marvel movies. I watch a lot of blockbusters. I watch indie movies. I wrote a movie years and years ago. Um, at some point I will write another one. I have a bunch of ideas pushing around in my head. Um,
That's hilarious that you write movies too. I do that too. I've
yeah.
been screenplays and stuff probably since I was 15 years old.
hmm Yeah, I started because I used to do stuff on Newgrounds. I used to write some of the Flash animations. I don't know if I'm too old, but that was a place where people used to make little videos and stuff like that. So I used to write skits. Being so involved with theater because I've run sound for my brother's theater and stuff like that. Um, it was always encouraged to write, and partially because there's a little bit of it where I'm like, I could write this shit. Like, come on. Like I'll be watching something, I'm like, this is garbage. I could write this, whatever. And then I do, but um, yeah, that's a big thing. And we'll watch movies that no one gives a fuck about, or I'll view it where I'll be like, this is one. Like I watched Jaws 4. You ever watch Jaws 4? Who even knew there was a fourth Jaws movie?
But why did they make a fourth Jaws movie?
Um, it's not bad. It has a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. But it's not a bad movie. A friend of mine said, because I was raving about it. 'Cause I was like, this movie is insane. Because the plot of it, I'll sum it up really quickly. The plot of Jaws 4 is that the shark from the first movie, which explodes in the end, spoilers for a fucking 40-something-year-old movie, the shark comes back and torments the Chief Brody's family. He's not in the movie, but his family is, his wife and his sons. And then they escape to like Barbados or the Bahamas, something like that. And the shark has followed them down there. It's the craziest shit. Like it's so insane. And I was like, that movie was pretty good. It's 90 minutes long, like has very clear definitive acts. Uh and a friend of mine was like, He's like, dude, I just looked it up. It has a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. And I was like, oh, no. You just didn't see the other numbers. And I wrote in like a 9 next to the zeros. And I put the tomato emoji next to it so it looked fresh. Uh, yeah, I watched that Free Willy. I've watched all 3 Free Willy movies. A lot of
Okay.
nautical themed movies. uh, yeah, lots of horrible movies. Fern Gully, it's a great movie. um, yeah, that's how I spend my time mostly.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and doing this with me. I had an awesome fucking time. So before we go, can you kind of I'll include like links to all of your music and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
If you can just tell people where we can find you.
Yeah, I'm Beau Dega. It's Beaudega. There is a space in the middle, like it's a name, because it is. It's obviously not my real name. Which is funny, I didn't tell you that, but maybe another time. Um, and I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, uh, you name it. Bandcamp, Instagram. Um, that's about it that I'm aware of. I don't know any of the other Tidal. I don't know. There's lots of other services it's on. Um,
That's also speaking of streaming services. I just found out last night that apparently this podcast is on Google Podcasts. Not sure how it got there, but
yeah,
there. So well, now I know for a fact that we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm pretty sure we're on Pandora. If does anybody even use Pandora anymore?
no, I didn't know that they had podcasts.
They do.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
it's still like up to date. They still put like new stuff out on there.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it might be on there. Every time I look, I use Anchor. So I guess Anchor just like distributes everything everywhere.
Yeah.
Every time I check on like the numbers and seeing how well it's doing, I find out I'm on more shit. So
Does it
yeah,
cost you money?
no, it's absolutely free.
Oh, how about that? Okay. That's cool to
You
know.
up Yeah, you upload it to anchor.com and then literally within 20 minutes maybe it's on everything.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we just did an episode for the people watching this. This is Friday right now. This episode is going to come out next week, but I just did an episode last night and uploaded it, and it was on everything before I even went to bed, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's amazing. The
Yeah, so
modern
we're
age.
hold on, I'm gonna